Breaking tonight, new information on the second known American killed while fighting for ISIS in Syria. We're now learning that the Somali American from Minnesota previously worked for Delta Airlines with a role that gave him security clearance at the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. Trace Gallagher has that. Trace?
And Megan, the Metropolitan Airports Commission, which gives security clearances to employees at Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport, tells us that Abdurrahman Mohammed worked at the airport off and on for 10 years, first putting fuel in the airliners and later cleaning them. That means he had unfettered access to the tarmac, the planes, and other secure areas. Delta Airlines won't comment except to say they are working with authorities and that all employees with a security clearance are fully vetted by the Department of Homeland Security. Abdurrahman Mohammed's security clearance ended in 2011. He left late last year to fight for ISIS and died this summer in the same battle as Douglas McCain, who is also from the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. In fact, 15 men and 1 woman from the Twin Cities are thought to be fighting for ISIS. Some have been featured in ISIS social media campaigns, and many are members of the Minnesota Somalian community. A director of that community believes ISIS members are targeting their young people and funding their trips. Now, Fox 9 Minneapolis, which broke the story about Mohammed working at the airport, says he was married 4 times, had 9 children, and no criminal record they could find. But during an interview in June with the Minneapolis radio station, Mohammed claimed that he wanted to save the global Muslim community, and if that causes others to consider him a terrorist, he is, quote, happy with it. Probably not the person you want fueling and cleaning your airplane.
No,
Megan.
Not so happy now. Trace, thank you. Well, we learned a month ago that the Department of Justice had some 40 investigators assigned to the police shooting of an 18-year-old in Ferguson, Missouri. The question tonight, how many investigators have been assigned to track would-be terrorists in places like Minneapolis? Tom Dupree is a former Deputy Assistant Attorney General. Well, Eric Holder said the full resources of the Justice Department would be unleashed on Ferguson to help solve one crime. How many do we have in Minneapolis tonight, where the Minnesota U.S. Senator Al Franken is now calling on the DOJ to do more?
Well, that's the thing, Megan, is that when Al Franken is criticizing you for being soft on terrorism, you've got an issue. I hope that the Attorney General is going to prioritize this. We've seen what he does when he gets involved in something. We've seen how he personally went to Ferguson. He focused his attention on it. And I'm not going out on too far a limb here to say that I think ISIS poses a greater threat to United States national security than the Ferguson Police Department does. I trust the Justice Department will recognize that, and I trust that they will deploy sufficient resources to find out why Minneapolis and St. Paul have become a hotbed for ISIS and a fertile recruiting ground for jihadists.
Right. The 2 guys who just got killed fighting for ISIS, the Americans, are both from Minneapolis. They went to high school together. They were friends. They wind up over there fighting for this terror group. And prior to that, there was another guy who went over to Somalia, and this was his message for those who might consider joining him in the jihad. Listen.
If you guys only knew how much fun we have over here, this is the real Disneyland.
The real Disneyland. So there's something about Minneapolis and its community that is leading to this sort of radicalization. And what have we heard, if anything, from DOJ on this?
Well, we haven't heard much, Megan. What we have heard is that they have the FBI looking into it. But I think what's going on here is that these guys aren't doing this themselves. They are being radicalized, whether it's by seeing materials on the internet that's firing them up, or whether they're actually people in Minneapolis and St. Paul working these communities, giving these people the means, the money, the plane tickets, the instruction, telling them what they need to do to go abroad and engage in this jihad. And so I think what the FBI needs to focus on is, are there people on the ground in Minneapolis, St. Paul, who are fomenting this sort of thing? This is not just a foreign policy issue. This is a domestic security issue. Okay. And the FBI and DOJ need to recognize that.
Now, there you go, because my next point was going to be that the DOJ, this administration, they've told us repeatedly that they are going to handle these terror cases as criminal prosecutions in the criminal justice system, as opposed to declaring them as part of the war on terror, and we would take care of it that way. So if that's going to be the approach, do they not owe the American people as aggressive an approach as they can possibly offer when it comes to sniffing out who is fomenting, as you put it, radical jihad within the U.S. borders?
Absolutely. This has to be a top priority. We've seen their position that they prefer not to take the war or the criminal route. They prefer to prosecute people who are involved in terrorist acts in the domestic courts. I have concerns about that. A lot of people have concerns about that. But one thing I think everyone should be able to agree on is that we need to put whatever resources are necessary to getting to the bottom of this, to find out what is going on in Minneapolis and St. Paul. This is not a coincidence. These numbers are striking, and there's a reason for that, and we need to find out what it is and stop it.
Tom, good to see you.
Thank you, Megan.
Well, we've heard repeatedly that Muslim countries need to stand up in this fight against ISIS. Just ahead, we'll speak with the spokesman for one of America's biggest Muslim communities about that. Plus, with warnings that this terror group wants to target the United States, we are investigating reports tonight that thousands of foreign nationals in the U.S. have vanished. Next.
We can't wait forever, and the longer we do wait, the stronger ISIS becomes, more people are massacred, and more America and Britain become at risk.